Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We're happy that you're here to join us at Real Life. We have a lot of things coming up. Oh, by the way, I'm Joe, and this is my friend Anthony. We have a bunch of things coming up in the life of the church.
Yeah, one thing in particular we want to make sure you have on your calendar. March the 20th, so it's not this Thursday, it's the next Thursday. We have a gathering here at 7 p.m. called Welcome to the Bible. If you've never read through all of the Bible before, or if it's been a while, or if you know someone who's like, I kind of know some stuff, but I haven't gone through the whole thing, we're going to go through the whole thing in one night. And by we, I mean Pastor Jim. And it's going to be great. If you've never been before, we'd love to invite you to that. That is March 20th, Thursday at 7 p.m. Put on your calendar. It's not this week. It's the next week. We'd love to see you there.
We just also want to say thank you for your generosity and being a part of the church and all the awesome things like baptisms and community outreach and the pantry. If you want to continue to partner with us, or if you've never done it before, but if you would like to, you can go to reallife.la/give. So partner with us. Other than that, we have...
I think those are the things. So we're going to get out of the way. Pastor Jim has a great message today. We'll see you right after.
Hey, Real Life Church, it's Pastor Jim. We are in a series called At the Table, and we are gathered at the table with Jesus and his disciples for his last meal. And the words that he gives us are his most weighty. He's at the end of his life on the night he was going to be betrayed, and so he passes on to his inner circle, those things that were most important. As John writes his gospel, John's at the end of his life, about to go to heaven, and he's passing on to his church, his inner circle, the things that were most important as he remembers and records the life of Jesus. Clearly, John thinks what Jesus says at the table is of critical importance because more than half of John's gospel is that last week of Jesus' life. John's gospel is 21 chapters long, and the last gathering at the table begins in John 10. So John 10 through 21, or actually that's where he enters into Jerusalem. John 10 through 21 is all the last week of Jesus' life. And chapters 13 through 17 are the discussion at the table. So clearly, this is kind of what John sat down to write about. He wanted us to hear the conversation that Jesus had with his followers in this final meal. And as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, if you have been listening along, you know, he's like an owner passing on his vineyards to a manager who's going to run it. And he says, I want you to run it the way that I would run it. I want you to do the things that I would do. If I wash other people's feet, you wash other people's feet. If I take on the dirty job of serving in a place of humility, you take on the job of serving in a place of humility. If I love those who I know are going to betray me and I serve them anyway, then you love and forgive those who treat you poorly. And so now they're gathered around the table here at the end, and it's the Passover meal. It's Independence Day, and so there's tension in the air. This is their holiday in which they remember revolution and freedom from slavery in Egypt, and now they want to be free from the control of Rome, and they want to toss out King Herod. And Jesus has ridden into Jerusalem to the cheers of the crowds who want a new king. He also knows what's going to happen. He knows he's going to be betrayed and that his disciples are going to abandon him. So there's anxiety in the air, and his teachings are woven through with the theme of betrayal. But perhaps because of the ridges on Andrew's brow or the look in Philip's eyes, he has a moment of compassion where he realizes the things that he's speaking of are weighty for them. And so he wants to leave them with a promise. So look at the Gospel of John chapter 14 and verse 1 and follow along with me in God's word and listen to Jesus' words here at the end. He says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. There's no question after reading the Gospel of John and the writings of the Apostle Paul that Jesus taught that he was God, that he was the only Son of God, the uniquely chosen Messiah, and that he is the source of all truth about God. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, so that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. And this is a passage that we often read at funerals because it says that Jesus is going to prepare a place for us in which we will inherit in the end. This and Revelation 21 are the two little glimpses of heaven that we really get in the scriptures. And Revelation 21 paints a sort of a bigger picture. It says that the carpenter from Nazareth goes to prepare a place where there is no more death or mourning or crying or pain, and all tears are wiped away. And it says the gates of the new city that God's people will inherit are always left open. Ancient Jerusalem had large gates all around its walls to protect it from intruders. And in heaven, there's a new Jerusalem, a new capital, a new homeland. And in this new homeland, the doors are always left open because there's no longer any threat. There are no enemies from which the people of God need to be protected. I remember a house my church friends and I rented when we were in college together. We were in a college fellowship group at the church, and we decided we wanted to live in the same house. So a bunch of us rented this 2-story house, probably a dozen rooms in the house, upstairs and downstairs. And we used to sit in the living room downstairs by the front door, and we would always leave the front door unlocked. And people could just come and go. We never know who was going to walk through the door. The door would just open and close all day long, and it would always bring warmth and friendship with it. This was back in the days before anybody owned a computer or a cell phone, so there was very little there worth stealing. So we would just leave the door unlocked. And outside above the door, a wisteria tree grew, one of those beautiful purple wisteria trees. And as the door opened and the warm breeze would blow in, purple flowers would spread across the carpets. And even as I remember that place and that scene, it just feels safe. And that's what heaven is like. A place where the doors are always left open. And the carpenter of Nazareth is there, and he's gone before us to prepare a place. He's been warning his disciples about his death and betrayal and about things to come, and they're scared. And so he says, now don't worry. I'm going ahead of you, and it'll be a good place when you get there. Thomas, who's a bit of an empiricist, follows up with a question. And it's a practical question, but it shows that he's misunderstood what Jesus is saying. Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way?" Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." Jesus says, "I am the way." And the Greek word for way here is hados, which is the source of our word for road. Somewhere along the way, the H became an R, somebody smudged it, and it became hados, became roads. And so what he says is, I'm the road. And Thomas is just hearing this pragmatically. I'm going ahead of you. And Thomas says, where are we supposed to go? Are we taking the road to Jerusalem? Are we taking the road to Damascus? What way are you going that we should follow? And Jesus looks him in the eye and says, no, Thomas, I am the road. The road is me. I'm the way to get to where you're going. It's not some other town. It's life with me that is the path. This famous passage loses a little bit in translation because of the word "thee." The way we use the word "thee" in this sentence makes us lose track of what Jesus is actually saying. We get the word "thee" from the old Greek language. The Greeks put "thee" in front of all kinds of things. And one of the hardest things to understand about the English language, if you are learning the English language coming from another language, is why and how we use the article. Why we use "a" and "the" where we do. Why we say it's the United States, but it's not the Germany. And it's we're going to go to the mountain, but it's not we're going to go to the Mount Baldy. And You can say, do you want to go to a church? And I say, let's go to the church, and we're both correct. It's really hard to understand how and why we use articles, and we get all that from the Greek. When Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life, there's a nice parallelism to it. And that's why we say it the way we do. And it's even iambic pentameter. I am the way, the truth, the life, right? It's easy to roll off your tongue, but we've said it so many times that we've lost track of its meaning. Jesus is saying, the way to heaven is not a path, it's a person. And I am the road. I'm the road you should take. Life with me, holding my hands, letting me walk you through life. That's how to get to the life that you want. That's how to be where I am. Thomas, I am the road to God. To see me is to see God. But I don't think we should translate it, I am the truth. I think that loses some of the force of what Jesus is actually saying. I think it would be better if we translated it, I am the road. I am truth. Truth itself. I am the foundation of all knowledge and wisdom. I am purity itself. Everything you need to know about life is in me. I am the thing that clears your mind when you are confused and suddenly the light bulb goes on and you see things clearly. I am truth. Truth itself. And likewise, when we say, I am the life, I think we lose the passion and the feel of what Jesus is saying. Thomas, I am the road. I am truth. I am life. Life is in me, and life is from me, and life is through me. I designed you. I made you. You are made in my image. I am a being of love, and you exist rightly when you live in a relationship with me and your peers in a state of loving kindness. I am life. I don't like saying I am the life, partly because the way we use that phrase otherwise. When we talk about the life, it's usually when we're on a ski-doo on a 3-day weekend with our sorority system. You know, it's Mimosa Monday, girls. This is the life, right? That's how we say the life. And I think it loses the force when we translate it, I am the way, the truth, and the life. What Jesus is saying is far more passionate than that. I am life. I am the engineer bent over blueprints. I'm the welder, the crafter, the painter, the seamstress. I am the one who puts it all together. Life is in me and from me and through me. This is how weighty the words of Jesus are in this last meal with his disciples. He begins by doing this terrible, dirty job that nobody wanted. It's like plunging the toilet. If I wash feet, you wash feet. And I'm going to love and serve even those who I know will betray me. So you live a life of grace and forgiveness. And if you want to know how to get to life the way it should be, remember, I am the road. I am truth, truth itself, and I am life. Everything that you need in life is in me. Jesus is offering what everyone actually wants. We want real life and authenticity. We want truthfulness and honesty. The Atlantic Journal this last month in February ran a cover article called The Antisocial Century, and it talks about how increasingly people are spending time alone. They say it actually started back in the 1960s when TVs become widespread in American homes. People started to be more entertained at home than they used to be, so they would stay home. It dropped off significantly in 2010. We started spending far less time together in 2010 when Instagram hit the market. Facebook was already out, Instagram came out, and we all dove into our devices. And then it got even worse in the pandemic and we became more isolated. And since the pandemic, it's only risen a little bit. It hasn't even gotten back to the level that it was in 2010. From that resultant isolation and loneliness, there's a new rise of what the article calls secular monks. People who seek spiritual practices without theology behind them. And it cites several examples. There's a rise of fasting as a discipline, sometimes tied to health regimes. There are cold plunges that people do in the morning. There's as a form of asceticism. People are meditating and journaling more than they ever did before. We are spiritual beings trying to find spiritual life while pretending there is no source for it. We want life. We're looking for it everywhere. And Jesus offers exactly what everyone wants. Jesus offers us life. He says, you'll find it in me. The article says we're turning in other directions. It says there's a new rise that they're studying of companionate AI, artificial intelligence that functions like a friend, where people have dialogues with an app in their phone. And they do it at such a level of detail and intimacy that it is taking the place of normal human interactions, because interacting with real people shows you that people are awkward and selfish and sometimes difficult. And it's easier to just talk to a phone and pretend like it's real. What's happening in the rise of artificial intelligence, and particularly the kind that's being used as companionate AI, is like something that happened decades ago in the production of American plateware. Our plates at the table used to come, if they were fancy, used to come with intricate designs painted on them. And so people could eat their meals and then have this beautiful plateware in front of them with gorgeous paintings on it. Well, the problem was the paint that they were using back then had lead in it. And even as recently as 2021, the New York Board of Health found that there were 15 deaths tied to lead poisoning that came from dishware. We literally were using the thing that feeds us to poison ourselves. It was feeding us and poisoning us at the same time. You know what else does that? This does. It feeds us and poisons us at the same time. Because this is surrogate life. When we try to find our happiness and our existence and our time consumption online in our devices, we're missing out on the real thing. And Jesus offers what everyone is looking for in the flesh. I am the road to life, to truth, to meaning, to everything you want. I am the road. I am truth itself. I am life. Don't do this without me. There's no other way. If you want to find your way to life, you have to do it with me. Philip will then ask another question in verse 8. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough. Show us the author of life. Show us the foundation of all of this. Jesus answered, don't you know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves. Jesus says 4 things here. To see me is to see the Father. I am in him and he is in me. My words are his words, and the miracles are proof of that. Theologians have struggled to explain the doctrine of the Trinity for centuries, since the beginning of the church. How God can be Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. How those 3 are somehow one thing and yet 3 distinct things. St. Patrick in the 5th century would famously hold up a 3-leaf clover and say, see, if you pull off one of these leaves, it's not a 3-leaf clover anymore. It takes 3 for it to be one thing. And that metaphor is okay. A modern chemist might point to the chemical makeup of water and say H2O can be frozen and then it's ice, or it can be liquefied and then it's water, or it can be heated up and then it's steam. But at the end, the substance, the essence of it is all the same. It's H2O in all 3 cases. And maybe same way the Father, Son, and the Spirit are one essence in 3 somehow distinct natures. And that metaphor is okay too. I once heard a baker talk about generating sourdough from the mix of a previous sourdough and said you ended up with exactly the same stuff. It generated a new one that looked the same and tasted the same and was the same. And that mystery is okay too. That metaphor is okay too. But in the end, I think the nature of the Trinity is going to be fundamentally mysterious to us. What's clear in Jesus' teachings here at the last table is that he claims a unique identity with the Father. And in doing so, he is making a pathway of himself that separates him from all other faiths and philosophies. Jesus is claiming a kind of distinction that goes well beyond the bounds of a moral teacher telling us how to live life rightly. Socrates or Seneca could tell us how to live life in a wise way. That's not what Jesus is doing. In fact, as a moral teacher, Jesus is a failure because he equates himself with divinity. And that's not what a moral teacher does. That's completely lacking in humility. That's a kind of grandiose delusion that's completely inappropriate for a moral teacher. Jesus never meant to leave open to us the option of calling him simply a good moral teacher with wise advice about life. A more plausible alternative would be that he's a cult leader, that he's trying to manipulate people by calling himself God, because that's what cult leaders do. The problem is, the reason cult leaders do that, and we've seen this multiple times throughout history, is because they're in pursuit of money, sex, and power. And Jesus preaches against money and gave up the pursuit of money, and he never knew intimacy with a wife. And he certainly didn't have power. He surrendered to the point of death on the cross. So as a cult leader, he's kind of a failure too. The far more likely explanation is that he is exactly who he says here. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. If you've seen me, you've seen him. I am the road to the Father, and nobody gets there any other way. My words are his words. What's important about this text, and the reason he includes it in his last appeal to the disciples to make sure they understand who he is and what he's doing, is not because he wants to lay out a dissertation on the nature of the Father and the Son. He's not trying to spell out the doctrine of the Trinity for us. He's told them that he's leaving. And as an act of compassion, he is concerned with them, and he wants them to know that there is comfort ahead. I am the road. I am truth. I am life. If you see me, you see the Father. If you see me, you see what life is for, what life was all about, why you were made, how you're supposed to live, and ultimately, where you're going. There's a place, a home, where the door is always ajar. Friends come and go. You never know when the door is going to open, but when it does, it always brings warmth. And purple flowers blow across the doorstep on the breeze, and it always feels safe. Jesus says to us right now, I'm the road to that home. I'm the architect that built it. I'm the doorway through which you must pass to get there. I am the source of all life and all goodness that you experience in the journey on the way there. So don't try to do life without me. I'm the only way. Amen. God bless your devotional time leading up to Easter as we enter this season of Lent. If you have not already, I'd encourage you to read John chapters 13 through 17 as we go through this study together. God bless you. I'll see you next week. Go be the church.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Pastor Jim, for that message. If over the course of this next week you need anything, if you need the church to come alongside you, you can always email us info@reallife.la. We'll make sure that we get right back to you.
I think that's all we have. So thank you so much for joining us, and go and be the church.